They drove out pretty much the old white middle class that had come here during the Oklahoma diaspora, the Steinbeck sort of Okies, that 2 or 3 million person migration, plus the old European immigrants that came in the 19th century, early 20th century, and Armenians, Japanese, China. A lot of these people have left, third and fourth generation, of all different races and backgrounds. And they have been replaced by Mexican-American immigrants, many of them from southern Mexico, as we saw from the racist LA council members who were so angry at what they called Oaxacan people. And so that group they felt would be a dependent constituency and mindlessly vote for their agenda. But two things have happened. One, that agenda has social mores in it that are not compatible with traditional culture. Transgender surgeries at 12 without parental consent, abortion to the last day of birth, a war on the Catholic Church, things like that. And that bothers, say, the Hispanic population, which is about 45 to, depending on how you define it, 45%. And crime. They are insulated more against crime than the people, say, in Fresno or Bakersfield or Merced. They don't have the resources, the private patrols, the security, when you bring in that many people. And then if people are a new generation of electric contractors, plumbers, roofers, and that is pretty much the new emerging Latino middle class. And they look at wire that's suddenly not $33 a spool, but Romex electrical wire is $180. Or they look at a sheet of plywood that was $8, it's $70. Or they look at plastic pipe to do a plumbing job for somebody, and instead of $50, it's $200. And then that person says, I can't, what's going on? And they'll say, I don't know what's going on. I just fill up my diesel truck, I paid $7 a gallon. I don't know what's going on. Who's doing this? So I think you're going to see that constituency in a historical shift that could approach 45 to 50% of the Hispanic vote will not vote Democratic or will stay home. And that's going to be, and it's just starting that revolutionary cycle. I think it could be very important for the future of California.
Do you think the rest of Californians will make a shift in the near future?
Yeah, I think they will. I don't think it'll be, it'll be more pragmatic. They'll feel that what's going on is not sustainable. They'll say to themselves, my son is 25, he cannot afford a house. My daughter can't pay her electric bill. We can't take a Sunday drive anymore because of the price of fuel. We cannot turn our air conditioner on in July in Bakersfield. We can't have advanced placement in our local school because we have all these people coming in from countries that need bilingual education. And so all of these things are conspiring to convince a Democratic constituency that the old allure to be Democratic, which was come across the border, we don't care how you do it, we will give you amnesty or de facto amnesty, vote with absolute fealty for our candidates. We will be very generous with Medicare, Medi-Cal, EBT, electric bank transfer cards, social welfare programs, affirmative action. All of those democratic lures to the underclass is not as convincing when the underclass in typical American fashion is just showing the same upward mobility in the way that Italian American. They're very similar to the Italian American immigrant, to the point where, as I've said before, a Giuliani or a Cuomo, you don't know their political affiliation. Well, it's going to be in pretty soon, if your name is Lopez or Martinez, you're not going to know what, by just their surname, who they're going to vote for. And that will spell the death knell of the Democratic monopoly, and that's what they're worried about. What's happening with the Hispanic group is also happening with other groups. And I'm in an agricultural community that's had a huge number of Punjabi Sikh immigrants come. They traditionally were Democratic, and now I'd say they're 50-50, if not becoming more and more conservative, as they try to run businesses, trucking businesses, stores, farms in a highly regulated and controlled and taxed economy. They just don't feel that it's conducive for, they feel they have a target on their back by the government. And they can't quite figure that out yet. Well, we vote for you people. We vote for the Democratic Party. We vote for Gavin Newsom. And look how he treats us. And I think they're starting to understand, all of these immigrant communities are starting to understand that the Democratic Party is a party of the very, very, very rich and the very poor. And they don't belong to either group anymore. And if they want to aspire to be very rich, it's very hard. It's like the rich have gone into the attic and pulled up the door, trap door, and you can't get in because of the tax code and the regulation. And so I think it's a slow process, but and how does that manifest itself when you talk to somebody? Where I live, if I talk to somebody, the food store, or somebody comes by to see me, or I get gas, I'm talking to somebody, they'll say things like, Victor, have you seen what's going on in the school? They're trying this transgender stuff with my kid, or they're making fun of the Catholic Church, or they're letting kids say that boys are girls and they're only 12 years old. Who's doing this? Why are you guys, and they always say, why are you doing this? And I always say, I'm not doing it. You're doing it. You're voting for a party that is doing it. And then they say, yeah, but why are we doing it? You know, and so this area's elite are getting more and more and more and more left-wing, esoteric, eccentric, and they're divorcing themselves, even though they don't know it, from their constituencies. And I think at some magical point it will be sort of like the Rio Grande Valley in Texas, where all of a sudden these Hispanic communities that were loyally Democratic are starting to flip because they're frontline dealing with illegal migration. And remember, illegal migration is not 85% from Mexico. It's from Venezuela, it's from Africa, it's from all over the world. And a lot of the people don't feel any ethnic affinity with the people coming across, so they're much more emboldened to criticize illegal migration.
Now, you said it needs to get worse. What does that look like? Do you have any
I can
thoughts?
tell you, let's just go through a barometer of things. Let's say that you want to drive down I-5 from San Francisco to Los Angeles. So you drive over 152, it hasn't changed to get over there. It's still a two-lane road in parts. You get on I-5, it used to be 2 lanes each direction, modern. Now the entire right lane is full of semi-trucks. And they go into the left lane. So you're having slowdowns, not in LA area or San Francisco, but out in the middle of nowhere. And then the driver says to himself, well, wait a minute. There's 100 yards of empty land and right-of-way the state owns, but they're deliberately not adding a 3rd lane because they're engaged in this chasing this unicorn called high-speed rail. But I have the highest gas taxes. Where is my 3rd lane so I can drive? Or they say, my son is a straight A student at Fresno Unified, but I just looked at his ACT scores, and they're pathetic. What did he learn? And they get angry. Or they say, we used to want to go up, let's say you live in Selena, let's go up to San Francisco for the day, watch a Giants game, go to a fishing, and they go up there. And they say there's feces on the street, there's needles, there's people that attack you, the cars have signs in it, nothing in car unlocked, please don't break window, with the windows down. And so the basics of life, and we talked about not being able to turn on the air conditioning or fill up. And remember, when you're driving, say, to Fresno to San Francisco, you're filling up at $6.50 a gallon. So they think the basics don't work anymore. And then you add the aggravation that the people who did this will aggravate you with these social and cultural issues. And it's a whammy, double whammy. They have done so much so quickly that they're starting to, you know, how do we pay for everybody to get $1,000 for gas, just give away? How do we get all these COVID checks? Why aren't people in California working when they're making, maybe it's because they're making more money with California relief than the people who are working. Why are we paying for billboards in other states to encourage to come to California to have an abortion? Why did we give $500 million for illegal aliens who broke the law for COVID? These questions start to come up when they see that the system is not working. And then you add in the other factor is that after 30 or 40 years, the middle and upper middle class is increasingly not quote unquote white. And they are starting to get hit at about 11% at $70,000 a year. And so when they go up these rungs and they start to see 11, 12, 13%, and then a tax increase at Washington of 40 up to 40, and they start to do the math, I'm paying 53% of my salary. And then they think, well, wait a minute, I used to make very little, I didn't pay the taxes, I got a lot of social services. Now, all those people that were in my present position have gone, they've left the state. And now I'm taking their place, but I thought I would be exempt. I would never leave the state for what the reasons they left the state. But now I realize I have more in common with them than I do the people here. And so you start to see people who are Japanese, Chinese, Latino, Sikh, and they say, why don't these people work? Why are they taxing me so much? Why are they sucking me dry? It's changing, and so people are saying, I'm no longer necessarily a beneficiary of this huge repertory state that is the most liberal as far as affirmative action, hiring and missions and social programs and rhetoric. All of a sudden I'm a middle class and my kid is named Randy Lopez or Declan Martinez, doesn't speak Spanish, he's very well educated. And now he's got a target on his back because it's very hard for him to buy a house or to go anywhere. And this is a new phenomenon. And most of the people that I knew in my community are gone. They've left. They'll never come back. They've all left the small farming community.
Do you think there's going to be a point that these people that are here, they're going to also change their thinking and say we were wrong? Because it seems like...
No, they'll never say they were wrong, but they'll change their thinking. They will say that these people who did these terrible things to the state were apostates. They weren't the true liberal. They were deranged. They were extremists. They hijacked the liberal revolution. And they'll never say they're conservative or traditionalist or that their way of thinking doesn't work. And so they don't, very few will admit that they're responsible for this state by voting these people in. No, they're ideologues. So ideologues will always go the entire trajectory to oblivion, claiming at the very last moment before everything just is destroyed that it's still working. So but they're not the people that will count. The people that will count are the independents, the residual Republicans, and new people, immigrants. And the funny thing is, if you let in a lot of immigrants, and it's starting to change now, you're starting to see people in this, with our new open borders from Venezuela and Cuba and from India, and a lot of these people have seen socialism or quasi-socialism, and they're not necessarily going to be as loyal a constituent as people were from Mexico in the beginning. It's a very volatile situation, so I don't think anybody knows what's going to happen to California.